Diana Ross is just getting there now in a very fancy dress. Really, it doesn't matter where you're from or where you've been, it's about moving forward and being yourself. That's what we're seeing tonight on the stage. What happened to Diana Ross? She was a beautiful star who ruled the charts, lit up the screen, and became a world icon. She wowed everyone with her singing, style, and presence for more than 60 years. However, the shiny records hide a story full of personal struggles, strong comebacks, and a trip that not many people really know. On every song, I couldn't help but think of old times. What took place during a recording? Where was I in my life at that time? What was I going through? At that time, people close to me proposed it. Diana Ross's life has been anything but normal. She went from living on the rough streets of Detroit to becoming famous all over the world. How did she go from being a dreamer in her teens to being Motown's face? How much did her success cost her along the way? Where is she now that she is 80 years old? This is more than just a look back at a famous career. The story of one of music's most famous people that has never been told before. A story about love, ambition, starting over, and leaving a memory. What you're about to hear will surprise you, whether you've been a fan for a long time or this is your first time hearing of her. Stay with us, because Diana Ross's story is much bigger than what the news ever said. Diana Ross was born in Detroit, Michigan, on March 26, 1944. She went on to become one of the most famous names in music history. In reality, she was the second of Fred Ross Sr. and Ernestine Mautin's 6 children. She had been on stages all over the world long before these roles. Her childhood was shaped by the lively energy of Detroit's North End and her upbringing in a close-knit Baptist family. A neighborhood near Highland Park that is mostly made up of African Americans. In the neighborhood at 635 Belmont Street, the Ross family had Smokey Icky Robinson as a friend. Robinson would later play a major role in Diana's musical career. No matter what her name ended up being, her mother had planned to call her Diane at first. But because of a mistake on her birth certificate, she was properly named Diana, which she later chose to use. People who knew her well kept calling her Diane when she was younger. Diana's life took a surprising turn when she was only 7 years old. At the time, her mother got tuberculosis, which was a very dangerous illness that kept her in the hospital for a long time while she got better. In order to make sure the kids were taken care of, Diana and her brothers were sent to Bessemer, Alabama, to live with their maternal grandparents. Reverend William Mautin, her grandpa, was the pastor of Bessemer Baptist Church. It was said that the time spent there was strict but good for her. In the end, when their mother got better, the kids went back to Detroit. The family moved to the Brewster Douglas housing projects on Diana's 14th birthday in 1958. Even though these projects were low-income housing, they had a strong sense of community and were home to many African American families who were trying to improve their lives. Diana gained a deeper knowledge of both resilience and creativity by living there. Cass Technical High School is a well-known magnet school in downtown Detroit that specializes in both academic and vocational instruction. We started going there. There was a lot of competition at the school, and it had a wide range of courses. Diana's first career goal was to be a fashion designer. At Castech, she learned about clothes design, millinery, how to make hats, tailoring, and making patterns. In addition to studying during the day, she took classes in cosmetology and modeling in the nights and on the weekends. This is around the time that Smokey Robinson helped her again, this time by giving her money. So she could pay for those lessons outside of school. His help not only showed how close they were as friends, but it also showed how artists helped each other before they became famous. Diana got her first job as a bus girl at Hudson's, a big department store in downtown Detroit, when she was in her teens. The fact that she was the first African American girl hired for the job made it important. Around that time, it wasn't always easy for black women to find work, so this was a big step forward. Diana worked at Hudson's and also did hairstyles for neighbors to make extra money. She was good at this because she had trained as a cosmetologist and had a natural eye for fashion. When she graduated from Castech in January 1962, she was done with official schooling. At first, she wanted to be a fashion designer, but soon her path would take a sharp turn toward music. In fact, she had been introduced to the business a few years before that. She joined a music group called The Primes when she was only 15 years old, in 1958. At that time, they were just four young girls with big dreams. Later, they would become the Supremes. These girls were formed to be the sister act to the Primes, a male singing group with Paul Williams and Eddie Kendricks, who would later join the Temptations. Paul Williams liked Diana's voice so much that he put her in touch with their boss, Milton Jenkins, who agreed to help the group. Diana Ross, Florence Ballard, Mary Wilson, and Betty McLean, who was dating Paul Williams at the time, were in the original lineup. The Primettes practiced all the time and started to show their talent at school events, church functions, and neighborhood talent shows. When they won a talent show in Windsor, Ontario, their hard work paid off. This made them more well-known in the local music scene. Diana and the group were eager to try out for Motown Records as their fame grew. Diana went up to Smokey Icky Robinson, who used to live next door and was now a famous artist and important person in Motown. He agreed to help, but only if the Primes let his band, The Miracles, use their guitarist Marv Tarpan for a tour that was coming up. The trade turned out to be good for both sides. Tarpan later became an important part of The Miracles' music, and the Primes were able to try out for Motown. Diana sang "There Goes My Baby" during their audition, and Motown boss Berry Gordy is said to have noticed right away. Gordy was impressed, but he told the group they should finish high school first before focusing on their music job full-time. Even though they were told not to, the girls stayed involved with Motown. They volunteered their time at Hitsville, USA, which is where Motown's offices are located, by adding background vocals and hand claps to different recordings. In 1960, they made 2 songs for Lupin Records, and Diana did a lot of work behind the scenes. For the group, she did their hair, makeup, and clothes, and she was kind of like an informal artistic director. Barbara Martin took over for Betty McLean when she left the group. Soon after, Motown gave the group a real chance to succeed. Before Berry Gordy suggested they need a more catchy name, Florence Ballard was the one who came up with The Supremes. Diana allegedly didn't like the name at first because she thought it might sound like a male group, but Gordy went with it anyway. For real, The Supremes signed with Motown on January 15, 1961. She left the group in 1962, leaving Ross, Ballard, and Wilson as the only 3 members. The way the 3 of them worked together let their voices blend in a way that directors and the growing fan base liked. In the beginning, success didn't come right away. Their first few hits didn't get much airplay in their home country, but they kept recording songs and slowly improving their image. What came after the huge hit Where Did Our Love Go? It didn't take long for Diana Ross and the Supremes to become one of Motown's most popular groups in 1964. In a busy music scene, they stood out with their polished sound, sexy look, and ability to appeal to a wide range of music fans. They had a string of #1 hits in just a few years, such as Baby Love, Stop in the Name of Love, and You Can't Hurry Love. These songs not only topped the charts, they also became cultural touchstones. In the mid-1960s, they made the Supremes as famous as the Beatles. But changes were happening behind the scenes. Diana Ross was becoming a bigger part of the group's public image. People thought that her voice, style, and stage demeanor were very important to their success. Berry Gordy, the leader of Motown, started to make her the face of the group, which made some members, especially Florence Ballard, angry. The Supremes often had arguments with each other because Diana was getting more attention and Gord was getting more involved in her work. Berry Gord's friendship with Diana wasn't just business. In the late 1960s, they started dating and were together for a number of years. Even though they didn't tell many people about their relationship at first, everyone in Motown knew about it. The way Ross's success went was greatly affected by Gordy. He thought she could be a solo star and did things to get her ready for that, like giving her more lead singing and making her stand out more in promotional materials. Florence Ballard was replaced by Cindy Birdsong in 1967, and the group was officially changed its name to Diana Ross and the Supremes. What was going on behind the scenes was proven by this move. Ross was now the center of attention. The group kept having success, but Motown was getting ready for Diana Ross's solo debut at this time. Motown made it public in November 1969 that Ross would be leaving the Supremes. On January 14, 1970, at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas, she played her last show with the group. That night, she introduced Jean Terrell as her replacement to the crowd, which was a way of passing the torch. It was the end of an age and the start of a brave new one. When Diana Ross started her solo business, there were a lot of hopes and a lot of advertising. Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand and Ain't No Mountain High Enough were two big hits from her self-titled debut record, which came out in June 1970. The second one was her first #1 hit as a solo act in the US, and it made her famous outside of the Supremes. In the same year, Ross also started to appear on more TV shows. Diana was the name of her own network TV show that she had in 1971. The Jackson 5 performed on the special, which also showed how well Ross could command the screen as well as the stage. Her charm and poise made it easy for her to move into entertainment fields other than singing. She was also going through changes in her personal life. Sharon Ross was Diana's first child. She was born in August 1971. Rhonda was widely thought to be Ross's daughter with her then-husband, music executive Robert Ellis Silverstein. However, it turned out that Berry Gordy was actually Rhonda's biological father. That was the end of Ross and Gord's romance by the time Rhonda was born, and Ross soon after married Silverstein. Even though things were complicated, Ross kept good relationships with both guys. When Rhonda was a teenager, he told her the truth about her father. Ross had 2 more children with Silverstein after that. Tracy Ellis Ross was born in 1972 and went on to become a famous actor and star of the TV show Blackish. Chudney Ross was born in 1975. Ross and Silverstein got a divorce in 1977, but their children kept them in touch. Ross also tried her hand at acting for the first time in 1972 in Lady Sings the Blues, a biopic about jazz great Billie Holiday. People were skeptical when she was cast because she hadn't done much acting before, but she surprised everyone with a strong and nuanced performance. She won a Golden Globe Award and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress for the role she played. Ross sang on the movie's album, which also went to #1 on the Billboard 200 chart and sold more than 2 million copies. Ross got more chances to work in movies after her role in Lady Sings the Blues. This was the moment that proved she was more than just a pop singer. She was a real performer who could easily switch between different types of music. She kept adding to her repertoire by releasing the song Touch Me in the Morning in 1973. It became her second #1 solo hit. In the same year, she recorded a duo album with Marvin Gaye called Diana and Marvin. It was a big hit around the world and showed how versatile she was as a singer. Ross's popularity grew even more around the world when she went on tour in Japan in 1973. With this tour, she was the first performer in Japanese history to be called to the Imperial Palace to meet with Empress Nagako, who is married to Emperor Hirohito. For her, it was a big award that showed how well-known she had become. She was the first African-American woman to co-host the Academy Awards in 1974. On stage with John Huston, Burt Reynolds, and David Nann, she showed once more that she was a recognized person in the entertainment business. She became a host, which was a big deal in culture and showed how much power she was starting to have. By the middle of the 1970s, Ross was known for always changing her look. Her first big hit was Love Hangover, which came out in 1976 and put her in the disco era. The song, which began as a slow ballad and then turned into a lively dance number, topped the charts and hit home with both R&B and pop fans. In the same year, she started her tour called An Evening with Diana Ross. It became a hit TV special and a Broadway show. The show was big and theatrical, with costumes and makeup by well-known artists like Stan Winston that were very complicated. Ross even played famous singers like Bessie Smith and Josephine Baker on the show. In the Broadway show, she won a special Tony Award, and in the TV special, she was nominated for an Emmy. Her personal life was closely watched even though her work was going well. She was closely linked to a number of famous people, such as Gene Simmons, the lead singer of the rock band Kiss. They started dating in the late 1970s, and Cher is said to have suggested them because she had dated Simmons herself before. Ross and Cher finally got angry with each other over the love triangle, and they broke up because of it. Simmons later said that he fell in love with Ross while he was still seeing Cher, which made things even more complicated. Diana Ross moved through the times with ease and skill, even though fame came with problems. She was always making music, always changing, and always pushing the limits of what a pop artist could do. Ross was always professional and a star, whether she was in the studio, on stage, or in the movies. By the end of the 1970s, she was well known as one of the most important female performers of the decade. Her move from being in a girl group to becoming a solo star was not only great, it was also a big deal. Through this, Diana Ross changed the rules for black women working in music and culture. Her reputation as a leader in her field and a world-class performer was already taking shape, and bigger and better things were still to come. Diana Ross was still making changes to her work as the 1980s began. At this point, she had already made a big name for herself around the world, built an amazing solo catalog, and been praised as an actress. She wasn't done yet, though. In the next part of her career, she would hit new sales highs, go through big changes in her life, and try to gain more control over her music and image. It was time for a change for Diana Ross after 20 years with Motown. As early as 1980, she was in talks to leave the record company that had helped her reach fame. It wasn't easy for her to make because she has a long-standing personal and professional friendship with Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown. Still, the chance to have more artistic and financial freedom pushed her to move. RCA Records offered her a big recording deal that was said to be worth $20 million over 7 years. At the time, it was one of the best-paid deals in music history. Motown couldn't match the deal, so they let her go with a $250,000 severance package. Why Do Fools Fall in Love was Ross's first record with RCA. Came out in October 1981. The album had a new version of the title track and the hit song, Mirror Mirror. Over 1 million copies were sold, making it a financial success. Ross showed that she could be successful outside of Motown with this album. She also took more responsibility for her work by creating it herself through her own company, Anaid Productions, which is Diana spelled backwards. Ross started to look into business hobbies besides music, such as real estate and fashion. She did more than just sing and act. She was also good at running a business. In the early 1980s, she kept putting out songs with RCA. In 1982, she released the album Silk Electric, and in 1983, she released Ross. Michael Jackson both wrote and produced the hit song, Muscles, which was on Silk Electric. Ross was nominated for another Grammy, and the song was a top 10 hit. It was also known for having a unique record cover made by the pop artist Andy Warhol. Her 1983 album Ross, which had a pop-rock sound and the song, Pieces of Ice, was a change in style. Critics gave the album mixed reviews, and it didn't even go platinum. However, it showed that Ross was ready to try new musical directions. Ross put out an album called Swept Away in 1984. It had both dance tracks and songs. Several songs from the album made it to the top of the charts, including Missing You, a tribute to her late friend and fellow Motown artist Marvin Gaye. Tiger Woods wrote and produced the song, which was a big hit in the US and around the world. Her duo with Julio Iglesias, All of You, also got a lot of attention and made her more popular with more people. The next year, she put out the record Eaten Alive, which she worked on with Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. The title track of the album, which also had vocals by Michael Jackson, did well around the world. In the UK, another song from the album, Chain Reaction, topped the charts. The upbeat pace and sound that were influenced by Motown helped bring Ross back to the attention of people in Europe, where she still has a lot of fans. Ross's career was going well, but she was also dealing with changes in her personal life. She met Norwegian businessman Ari Næss Jr. in 1985. When they got married in 1986, Ross became the stepmother of his 3 kids from a previous relationship, as well as the folk singer Leona Næss. Neil Ross and Næss had 2 boys together. Ross Arna was born in 1987, and Evan Olaf was born in 1988. Ross said that Aris Jr. was the love of her life, even though they got a divorce in 2000. She stayed close to her stepchildren and kept strong ties with her extended family even after she and her husband broke up. It was said that Næss had fathered a child with another woman, which led to the end of their marriage. Even so, Ross kept saying nice things about him and how much he valued the family they had built together. Næss died in a terrible accident while mountain climbing in South Africa in 2004. Ross later said that the death was very personal to him and that he missed him as a life partner and friend. Ross worked while she was also taking care of her family. She recorded "We Are the World" with a group of big-name singers in 1985. It was a charity single put together by USA for Africa. The song went on to sell over 20 million copies around the world and was meant to raise money for famine aid in Ethiopia. Ross's involvement put her in the same group as music icons like Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, and Stevie Wonder. This shows that she is still important in the music business. Ross was also very good at being seen on TV. In 1986 and 1987, she was the host of the American Music Awards. These shows showed how versatile she was as a host and performer, combining glitz with a stage personality that few could match. Her performances were often marked by dramatic entrances, beautiful clothes, and a link with the audience on an emotional level. Ross kept touring and making records as the 1980s came to a close. "Work in Overtime," a record she put out in 1989, was her return to Motown. Even though the record didn't do as well in the stores as she had hoped, it showed that she was still determined to grow as an artist. She had been making soul, disco, pop, and even some rock songs by this point. She became famous for always coming up with new ways to sound while keeping the things that made her voice unique. Ross's work was both stable and open to new ideas in the 1990s. She did many shows all over the world, including ones in the US, Europe, and Asia. Her live shows were still very popular, drawing fans of all ages. More people were also becoming aware of her impact. At the Soul Train Music Awards in 1993, she won the Heritage Award. She and the Supremes were given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1994. These awards showed not only what she had done in the past, but also how important she is to music and culture today. Ross put out an album called Voice of Love in 1996. It had some of her most famous duets and love songs on it. Fans really liked the record because it showed her softer, more romantic side. She also went back on stage in smaller venues, like jazz festivals and shows without any instruments. These shows gave her a chance to connect with fans on a deeper level and showed off her live performance skills outside of the big production tours. During this time, she managed her time between work and her family's growth. Her kids started to follow their own creative paths. Tracee Ellis Ross became an actor, and Evan Ross started working in music and movies. Diana stayed a constant in their lives, helping them while letting them find their own identities. Ross's work in the 1980s and 1990s showed how long-lasting and flexible she was, even though she wasn't as popular as she used to be. She wasn't just a star anymore. She was a building block. She brought decades of experience and a unique sense of artistry to everything she did, whether it was in a music hall, on screen, or in the studio. Diana Ross stayed famous for a long time because she could change things about herself without changing who she was at her core. During this time, she not only kept her career in the spotlight, but she also left behind a lasting legacy that affected a whole generation of singers, performers, and entertainers. Her hard work, skill, and poise helped her handle the changing music business while still captivating fans all over the world. Diana Ross wasn't at the top of the popular pop charts when the new millennium started, but she was still a big deal in music and entertainment. Indeed, between the years 2000 and 2010, Ross became known not only as a performer but also as a pioneer and cultural icon whose impact kept growing. Ross made a big splash when she and her daughter Tracee Ellis Ross were on the cover of Essence magazine in May 2004, which was the magazine's 50th anniversary issue. The picture of the mother and daughter, who were both successful in their own ways, was a way to represent passing the torch and celebrate the success of two generations. Ross's public image changed. She was no longer just seen as a music legend, but also as the head of a creative and bright family. Ross paid respect to his longtime friend and fellow Motown star Stevie Wonder at the Billboard Music Awards in December 2004. He performed as part of the celebration for Wonder's Century Award. In January 2005, just 1 month later, Ross took part in the Tsunami Aid, a concert of Hopeathon that raised money for people who had been hurt by the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. Her participation showed how dedicated she was to helping people and doing good things for others, which had been a theme throughout her work. In the same year, she started working with MAC Cosmetics, and the MAC Icon makeup line was released as a tribute to important people in fashion and beauty. The partnership showed how much Ross had influenced fashion and style, especially her famous look, which had helped fans for generations define beauty. Her looks had always been important to her, and now they were being praised in the high-end makeup world. Ross also kept working with other musicians on new projects. Rod Stewart's album Thanks for the Memory, The Great American Songbook Volume 4 came out in 2005, and she sang I've Got a Crush on You with him. The song wasn't a huge hit on the charts, but it did well in the adult contemporary market and showed how versatile Ross's voice is across different styles. In the same year, she re-recorded her 1991 hit, When You Tell Me That You Love Me, with Westlife. The song went to number 2 on the UK Tracks chart and number 1 in Ireland. Ross was able to connect with a younger audience and remind older fans of her lasting ability through these projects. She became even more famous as time went on, and in 2005, she was one of only a few African American women honored at Oprah Winfrey's Legends Ball. It was a weekend-long event that celebrated 25 women who work in the arts, entertainment, and civil rights. Ross was there with some big stars, like Maya Angelou, Aretha Franklin, Ketta Scott King, and Tina Turner. The event was later shown on TV, which helped solidify her place as one of the most recognized and powerful women of the 20th century. Ross's televised Central Park Show series For One and For All won the TV Land Awards Viewers' Choice Award for the Best Music Moment on TV in March 2006. The award showed not only how much people missed her legendary acts, but also how emotionally connected many people still were to her work. In the same year, Motown and Universal put out her old jazz album Blue, which was made in 1972. It got as high as number 2 on Billboard's list of the best jazz records, showing that fans of all kinds of music were still interested in her work. Ross's first studio record in a few years came out in October 2006, I Love You. It had some original songs and covers of love songs, like a re-recording of I Want You. Even though it wasn't a huge commercial success, the record did well on the charts and led to a world tour, which proved that her name alone could still fill venues. She kept performing live to packed houses, and her stage presence stayed captivating even as music styles changed. Ross won several awards in 2007, including the BET Lifetime Achievement Award and more at the Kennedy Center Honors. These prestigious awards showed how much of an impact she had. Not just in music but also in the past of American culture. In honor of tennis legend Billie Jean King, she sang at the start of the US Open tennis event the next year, in 2008. Again, this shows how her work is connected to larger cultural and social events. Ross was asked to be the main act at the Nobel Peace Prize show in Oslo, Norway, later that same year. Her set, which she performed for people all over the world, included a number of famous hits and was praised by many. The show made her famous around the world as more than just a performer. It made her a symbol of longevity, honor, and artistry. In 2009, she kept touring around the world and played at the Symfonica and Rosso Music Series in the Netherlands. Diana Ross's shows at the Gel Re-Dome Stadium were another reminder of how popular she was around the world. Even after making her name in Detroit decades ago, she still drew huge crowds. Her first tour as the main act in 3 years, More Today Than Yesterday, The Greatest Hits, began in 2010. People all over the United States loved the shows, which were moving and powerful. Ross named the tour after her late friend Michael Jackson, and after his death, Ross's versions of songs like Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand took on a new meaning. In the same year, she was admitted into the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame, which is a local honor for her music and roots. Ross won a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in February 2012. Even though she had a lot of hits over the years, she had never won a competition Grammy. The honor for her lifetime of work was long overdue, and she took part in the event by announcing the nominees for Album of the Year. Later that year, a DVD of her One and For All shows in Central Park came out, so new generations could remember that famous show. She sang at the Christmas in Washington event at the White House in December 2012, which was put on by President Barack Obama and the First Lady. Ross was a great fit for this stage because his impact went beyond music and into national culture. A lot of people saw her act on TV because the event was shown on TNT. She went on tour all through 2013 and 2014, stopping in South America, the US, and Canada. At the Montreal International Jazz Festival in July 2014, she was given the Ella Fitzgerald Award for her contributions to jazz and her continuing impact on modern vocals. Ross gave Taylor Swift the Dick Clark Award for Excellence at the American Music Awards in 2015. It was a public moment of mentoring between artists of different generations. In the music video for her son Evan Ross's song, How to Live Alone, she appeared with him. This was another way that she combined her work with her family life. She began a short stint at the Venetian in Las Vegas later that same year. It was called The Essential Diana Ross, Some Memories Never Fade. The shows were very personal for the people who saw them because they mixed personal stories with some of her biggest hits. Motown and Universal released Diana Ross singing songs from The Wiz in November 2015. It was an album from 1978 that had never been released before that revisited her work in the musical version of The Wizard of Oz. Ross's In the Name of Love trip began again in 2016, and President Obama gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom. At the event at the White House, people who had made important contributions to American culture were recognized. Ross was proud to be given the top civilian award in the country along with other greats from many fields. Diana Ross has had an impact on many people, not just through her songs. She is still a symbol of hard work, style, and success in entertainment even after decades in the public eye. Her ability to be popular with people of all ages is a rare feat in the music business, and her reputation keeps growing with each performance, collaboration, and tribute. When Ross got to the end of her work, she didn't slow down. In 2017, she put out a CD called Diamond Diana, The Legacy Collection, which was a collection of remade versions of some of her biggest hits. It had a new version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough, which became the #1 song on Billboard's Dance Club Songs chart in early 2018. The collection honored her long and varied career and reminded both old and new fans of how much she had done for popular music. Ross also released her own perfume called Diamond Diana to go with the movie. It sold out quickly on the Home Shopping Network. The launch's success showed that she will always have an impact on not only music but also fashion and beauty. Ross has always had a good sense of how to brand herself, and her style and business ventures were still making waves at this point in her career. In February 2018, she started a new short-term engagement at the Wynn in Las Vegas, where she played to packed houses. Her singing could still hold people's attention, and her stage presence was just as captivating. At the same time, she was becoming more famous again in the dance music scene. It was clear that her music would always be popular because remixes of her older hits, like I'm Coming Out and Upside Down, kept showing up on the charts. Ross later that year, in November, danced in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is one of the most watched live TV shows in the U.S. She sang with a big smile while riding with her family on a brightly colored float. It was one of the most memorable parts of the show. It was a reminder that she was liked by people of all ages, countries, and decades. An honor to Ross was given by the Recording Academy at the 61st Grammy Awards in 2019. The crowd, which included her peers, younger artists, and fans, gave her a standing ovation after singing The Best Years of My Life and Reach Out and Touch Someone's Hand. It was clear from her look how important she still was to American music as a whole. One of her best songs from the late 1970s, The Boss, was edited and re-released that same year. Once again, the new version was the #1 song on Billboard's Dance Club Songs chart. This made her one of only a few acts to have #1 dance hits in 5 different decades. Her music kept playing in bars, on streaming services, and at live shows, showing a rare and impressive durability. Ross was also set to play the famous Sunday Legend slot at Glastonbury in 2020, which was meant to mark the festival's 50th anniversary. It was supposed to happen that year, but the COVID-19 outbreak made it impossible. Still, the event organizers stuck to the original plan and rebooked her for the new date in 2022. When she finally took the Pyramid stage on June 26, she played songs from all of her albums to a huge crowd of fans. It was a historic moment, one of the most watched shows at the festival, and a successful reminder of how famous she is. Ross released a song with the psychedelic pop band Tame Impala in May 2022. It was called Turn Up the Sunshine. The song was on the soundtrack for the animated movie Minions: The Rise of Gru. Its happy mood and lively energy made Ross's voice known to yet another group of listeners. The collaboration came as a surprise, but it was well received and showed that she was ready to try new things and stay in touch with what's happening in music right now. Ross started the UK part of her Thank You tour that same summer. The tour had started in the US the year before. The show honored her many years of music by playing hits from both her time with the Supremes and her time as a solo artist. People who went to her concerts praised her charm, style, and singing, and they said she kept a close connection with her audience. The set lists had well-known hits, touching tributes, and words of thanks, showing how much she values her fans and the journey they've been on with her. Ross revealed the Music Legacy Tour in 2023, which was another chance to honor her amazing body of work. The tour started in the US and went to stages around the world. It included performances of her biggest hits and solidified her status as a living superstar. Her concerts were more than just shows. They were celebrations of a life devoted to music, and the crowds were very excited to be there. In the same year, it was announced that she would be performing at the Royal Albert Hall in London in October. This is a very famous and historic place. These future shows will make her even more famous around the world and keep people wanting to see her live. Diana Ross has had an effect on many people, not just herself. She has had an impact on many artists over many decades and across many countries. Michael Jackson often talked about her as a mother figure and said she was a big influence on his songs and on his life in general. Beyoncé has said in public that Ross is an inspiration to her, especially in how she handles her fame, her work, and her business. Madonna, Questlove, Leona Lewis, and Jade Thirlwall have also said that Ross had a big impact on their work and public image. Characters in literature have also been based on Ross's story. A lot of what Dina Jones does in the stage and movie forms of Dreamgirls comes from her journey in the musical Madone. The bond she had with Berry Gordy and the rise of the Supremes is shown in the musical. These works keep bringing parts of her story to new audiences and changing how people think about music history. She has also been on stage in the show Ain't Too Proud About the Temptations, where she plays a major role in the Madone story. Several actors have played Diana Ross over the years, which shows how well-known she was and how important she was to culture. Ross's songs have become a part of American music, both as a single artist and as a member of the Supremes. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame lists 500 songs that changed rock and roll. Some of these are classics like Stop, In the Name of Love, You Can't Hurry, Love, and Someday We'll Be Together. The Supremes were added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. They got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1994. They also made it into the Singing Group Hall of Fame in 1998. This is Ross's Hollywood Walk of Fame. She has 2 stars, one for being a solo act and one for being in the Supremes. Not many artists have been praised in this way. Billboard named her the world's best female performer in 1976. At that time, her place in the Guinness Book of Records as the most famous female music artist in history only proved what many people already thought. Diana Ross changed the way entertainment was done. There are even physical memorials to her. The city of New York dedicated the Diana Ross Playground in Central Park in 1986. For Ross, this was a special place because it was where she performed her famous shows in 1983. Kaufman Atoria Studios in Queens, New York, paid tribute to her by naming studio for the Diana Ross Building. This was done to honor her part in bringing the studio back to life while The Wiz was being filmed there in 1978. Ross was ranked number 87 on Rolling Stone's new list of the best singers of all time, which came out in 2023. It was clear from the award that her impact is still felt. Ross is still a model of artistry, grace, and sticking with things even after many years have passed. Diana Ross's life is more than just a pop star's story. Her story is one of overcoming adversity, starting over, and never giving up on her work. She broke down barriers for Black women in entertainment, fought against stereotypes, and built a global business based on being true to herself and doing her best. She has been famous for over 60 years, but she still inspires people, artists, and fans all over the world.